Okay, this video is about some special tools that are necessary when changing the spindle or changing ball joints on the Ford Mustang. That's like 65 to 73. The first tool is this right here, and this tool is pretty heavy duty, totally welded. But this tool is used to hold the upper control arm so that it doesn't come out and the spring doesn't shoot out on you. It could be pretty dangerous, actually lethal. But this tool wedges between the frame and the upper control arm. I'll show you how that works a little bit later. The other tool is this. This tool is basically a press, and what it does is it ties between the upper and lower ball joints. After you remove the nuts, you place this tool in there, and you can see that it's got a recess on both sides, and what that's for is to straddle the ball joint studs so that the tool itself doesn't slip off. That happens a lot on tie rod remover tools. They've just got a little sharp point that's supposed to stay into the center of the tie rod, but inevitably it slips off. These bolts, nuts, actually act as shoulders. So this tool here, I'll show you how it goes, how it works, and where it goes later on. But these are the two tools that you really need in order to replace your upper and lower or lower ball joint, either one. And I'll show you where they go in a second. Okay, we're working on a 68 Mustang convertible here, and I'm actually in the process of doing the Granada disc brake conversion. So I'm going to show you first where this tool goes here. Now, the tool itself is placed on the frame, and you'll see exactly where it goes. It goes right between this portion of the frame and the upper control arm right here. Now, it's necessary to remove the brake hose retaining bracket, which is right there. That's a better view, retaining bracket. And then you got your fuel line. And the fuel line, you don't have to take it off. You just remove this clamp here, and also there's a clamp towards the rear right here. Loosen that, remove the brake line, and get it out of the way. And I still have to remove the brake hose bracket, and I'll do that, and then we'll be right back, and I'll show you how to install that special tool that holds the upper control arm in place. Okay, we're back. Now I've removed the bracket, as you can see, and we've placed the jack underneath the lower control arm. Now I've got the jack away from the Zerk fitting because I don't want to crush the Zerk fitting, but I want to raise both the lower and the upper control arm so that I can put that tool in there. Now you can see that the control arm is angled, and I don't want the jack to slip, but once it gets up to height, it'll be pretty much horizontal, so it won't have that same angle on the jack, which could cause the jack to slip out. You don't want that to happen. So let's see where we're at. You can see the upper control arm is raised now, and the tool itself is going to rest between this frame member and the actual upper control arm. So we'll put it on the control arm, but you can tell that it's not high enough because the bracket won't fit under the frame. So we're going to have to jack it up some more, and I'm going to try to change the light here to give you a better view. If I could just find something to hang it on. Hopefully it doesn't fall. So we're going to try that. We're going to jack it up a little bit more and see how that works. Okay, there we go. Now, sometimes all you need to do is just put your body weight on the car. So we'll do that. Hopefully that forced the upper control arm up high enough that our tool will now fit. And looks like we're still having an issue here. Slight clearance problem getting it in between that upper control arm. So we'll try to jack it a little more and see if that helps. Now what happens sometimes is the perch, which is a solid rubber perch, and they make roller perches which are considerably better, but we don't have that. But the perch sometimes prevents the upper control arm, the spring from flexing, and the upper control arm from moving up. So I'm going to shut the video off and try to bounce on the car a little bit to get a little more distance between the frame and the upper control arm. Basically, I need the control arm to go up a little bit more so that the tool will fit in there. So I'm going to pause. Okay, after bouncing on the car a couple of times, I was able to get a little more space, and you can see now the tool will go right in there in that space. So let's try that one more time. The tool should be able to wedge itself right between the upper control arm, and you can see the tool right there, and it's wedged right under the upper control arm. Now what will happen next is I'm going to relieve the jack from its duties. The control arm will lower, and that metal bracket will now hold the upper control arm in place. The spring pressure is going to be up against that tool, which is why it's so thick. It's 3/8 inch thick. And there you have it. So that tool is in place. Now, next I'll show you the special tool, but first what I need to do is the special tool to remove the ball joints. Here you have your lower and your upper ball joints. There's a retaining, there's the lower, there's the upper. Now the tool that I've got here, this special tool, goes in between these, and then when you spread it open, it puts pressure. It uses one ball joint to counteract against the other, and then it pops one free. Then you're going to put the nut back on the bottom one, and I like to work on the bottom one first. You're going to put the nut back on the bottom one after you popped it, and then you're going to remove the nut from the top ball joint, and then do the same thing with the press. So I'll show you that in a second. First I'm going to remove these nuts. Okay, I've removed both the upper and the lower ball joint nut. This tool goes in like this. Now you can put it in this way, but I like to wedge it in this way so that it presses against the spindle right here, and that prevents it from turning. So we're going to back this out, and you can see how the nut is straddling that upper ball joint stud so it does not damage the threads, and we got that in place. Now the other thing I like to do is I'm going to squirt a little bit of lubricant in here, and then I'm going to apply just a little bit of heat to try to stretch the metal just a little bit to make it easier, because these ball joints can be pretty stubborn. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be back. Now you're going to apply the heat very gingerly because you've got that lower ball joint boot down there and you don't want to ruin it. I'm just applying a little bit of heat, hopefully to stretch the metal a little bit, but I don't want to burn that boot because that's the whole purpose of trying to use this tool, to save the lower ball joints and reuse them, and that includes the boot. So I'm just going to heat this a little bit, then I'm going to use the tool to break it free. Okay, it's kind of hard to video and apply a lot of pressure to this tool, but the tool uses a 1 inch, or actually it's 1 1/8 is what I've got on this nut, and I'm using my foot against the frame to give me a little extra leverage, and I'm going to try to pop this. Now when it pops, it can surprise you. It's kind of like that Pillsbury dough that every time it pops open it's like a shock, even though you know it's going to happen. So what's happening here is, as I'm turning this, the tool is not being held by the spindle. So that can happen. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to lock this in place to keep it from moving so that I can back this out and then spread these two, popping the ball joint. And it's going to pop most likely the lower ball joint, but it might pop the upper ball joint. Whichever ball joint it pops, I'm going to put the nut back on so that it kind of holds that part in place, and then I'm going to put the tool back in, and then I'm going to spread it out again and pop the other side. So I'm going to turn the video off so I can get to it. Okay, that went pretty well. Basically what I did was I had the tool in here, and when it popped, the tool actually just fell off because the ball joint popped out. But what I did was, rather than try to hold this with a wrench, it was much easier to just take a little, I'll show you, I've got these Harbor Freight tools, and they come in I think it's a 3-pack, but they're basically like the bent crowbar, little crowbar screwdrivers. And I placed it right in between the spindle here, and then I just held that with my left hand while I turned the lower nut with my right hand, and it worked out very well. It just popped right out. So what I have to do now is I'm going to have to put the lower ball joint nut back on, because we want this to hold it in place, so that the tool can now leverage up against the top, and I'll do that right now. Okay, I'm kind of running out of battery, so I'm going to make this short. You get the general idea. And basically what I'm going to do now is I am going to loosen up the upper right there, ball joint. And I put the nut back on. I left enough threads. These are 7/8 inch nuts, just FYI, in case you're going to do this to a Mustang as well. And I'm going to wedge the tool in exactly the way I did it last time. I'm going to put it so that the larger part is towards the top, like this. And I'm going to turn the nut on the bottom, because I'm going to wedge the body once again against the spindle. Like that. Wedge the body of the tool against the spindle, short side up top, the long side on the bottom. I'm going to turn the bottom one, and basically we'll just turn it, and if the tool starts to move again, what I did is I just wedged a screwdriver in there like that. That's all you got to do, and that holds it in place. You don't have to go out and vice grip it or get another 1-inch wrench and use 2 wrenches. Just do the one, and basically like that. Now that one fell off, but I'm going to have to put the camera down, but that's going to be the end of the video, and that's how the tool works. Thanks. Bye-bye.